What is going on, everybody? And in this video, we're providing a state of the market and stock picks for May 17th, 2022. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, consider subscribing, as I do provide daily and weekly updates to get you prepared for the day and the week ahead in this crazy market. Now, today there was not a lot of action really going on today. There's some different news events going on about rates and China lockdowns, continued more restricting China lockdowns, which was not good, but it really didn't play much into the market. I think it initially had initial impact, kind of that sticker shock impact where Apple was kind of selling off pretty quick this morning and then kind of recovered. The market just continued to chop today, and for good reason, because tomorrow we're going to have an exclusive with a lot of Fed members, but ultimately with Powell at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And in that interview per se, there's going to be a lot of details going on there. And with inflation, with what's currently going on in the market sentiment, and how the Fed is going to approach next steps. And that is going to have a big impact, considering that we had one of the biggest rate raise increases in a very long time, with 50-point basis move. They're talking about 50-point for the next two meetings, with possibility of 75-point basis move that's been floating around out there, which the market has been really concerned about, and something I've been kind of focusing on for my theory moving forward, that the overall market correction is based off of a 75-point basis move, which is roughly around that 20%. And now we hit that last week. As you can see in the bottom here, around that 38.58 is where we hit it. But my biggest thing is we did bounce straight out of here, and we're waiting on that. We're consolidating. We're waiting to see what they're going to say. Now, the Fed, again, has the ultimate power here. Whatever they say tomorrow, the market will be hanging on every word. So there could be an initial pump. Could push us back up to retest this. Essentially, that 4140 mark is a mark I've been talking about for a retest for the past couple of days, that retest needed to happen, and then potentially we would sell off again. You're going to get a hard rejection because it's the first reattempt, but also understand too that wherever that's off that hard rejection, where are we going to land from that point? That is ultimately what matters. And again, it really just depends. I mean, he could say something and we could blow straight through this and then break back over this 20 as well. Typically, you get a hard rejection, but if there's a big enough catalyst, you can kind of break through resistances pretty easy. And then when you start looking at higher time frames, so if you jump up to the higher time frame, you're sitting. This is the mark I've been talking about. We have 2 more weeks to try to reclaim that monthly support. If we can't reclaim that in the next 2 weeks, which ultimately I think what happens tomorrow is going to determine if we reclaim it or not. And then opening up in June, that candlestick open is really going to matter. Again, we want to be above the 4140 mark, or else we could be in deep trouble. Now, it's not saying, I do think potentially tomorrow we could start selling and retesting that low, which is a very strong possibility that I'm thinking is kind of what's going to happen. If no new news really comes out of tomorrow, I could potentially seeing us revisiting that 38.58. Ultimately, we want to see if we can hold that. If we can hold that, then I think we could be fine and can continuing to start push up. Again, I think we do need some kind of retest before we start selling. I'm not saying it has to happen. We've had really, really weak bounces, but even last week on that Thursday with that night, we had a really nice bounce overnight off of that, but then we just kind of been consolidating, waiting for tomorrow. So ultimately, that's what we are looking for. Now, Bitcoin has really been floating around this the 30K mark. Really needs to hold this. I think Bitcoin is running right along with everything that's going on with the market in general. It's been running in parallel. Again, I don't think the Luna stuff that happened with crypto and the whole fiasco that happened with the blocks essentially not producing any more blocks on Luna, essentially causing it to crash because of other aspects to that particular case that was going on there. Now that in itself, I think it dropped. That alone, I think, dropped Bitcoin, because Bitcoin was actually holding that roughly around the 32 really well. It's since pulled back. Ultimately, I think tomorrow will determine which direction we will go. We could get really good news, get rejected off that 20, and then potentially pull back a little bit and then start running again. So this next week, I think, is really going to be important, technical wise, on how the market reacts. Again, we want to reclaim some of those levels before the end of the month, or else could be in some big trouble. Potentially some big more selling could be a possibility. Again, we haven't really had any positive market sentiments, so that doesn't help either. And realize that this is normally kind of a dead time in the market as well. So, most people sell in May and come back later on throughout the summer and get a nice pump, but we'll see how that plays out. Tesla, again, always one I've been watching. There's a lot of Twitter news too, so Tesla's been selling pretty hard here, but we definitely don't want it to break below the 680 mark here. I'm sure we'll probably revisit this tomorrow. If we do get a clean break of that, we could potentially be falling pretty far down. Again, you have the psychological levels of 650 to 600, 550, but that 50 EMA is sitting right around 500. It's not saying that will move up. If I don't think Tesla's going to drop 200 points in one day. If that's the case, the whole market's going to come crashing down, which potentially tomorrow, depending on how bad it could get, it could potentially drop the market pretty quick. That, again, the 200 points wouldn't happen in a single day. Not to say that it can't. It sure can, but tomorrow is going to be keeping the market moving nonetheless. Google, again, another one. This one actually looks really good on a reversal. If you look at the daily, it looks like a break and a retest currently. If the market does turn, I think, again, this one can really start retracing some of these levels, particularly up to 2,500. I think could get up there fairly quickly, actually, in my opinion. This is why I like playing these front runners, industry leaders, because when we do churn, these ones run fast, very quickly. So watching Google, I want to see what's going on with that. Amazon itself, again, it's at a really bad level. Again, potentially watching that 2461. Again, it's the first clean break and retest. Again, things are going to get rejected very hard. And then you got that stock split coming up on the 6th June. So I have to be really mindful of that and see how that ends up playing out. Shop is one I've been talking about. It had a very hard rejection today off the trend line. So this one will also be very interesting to see on the break, or else this thing will be back down, actually around the 300 mark. So this could potentially have a nice 40-point sell-off tomorrow. That's something else to watch. Airbnb, again, it's at levels. This thing could potentially keep selling. I know there's been a lot of bad news as far as travel stocks as well, so that's not helping. But another good one I think can turn around. As long as it's going to hold the 113 mark, I think we could potentially head back up. Again, you got that 20 that's probably going to roughly be sitting around the 131 mark, 132 mark. That could make up fairly quickly. It's one of the value stocks I do like to play that reverses quickly, so be mindful of that. Banks in themselves, somehow they are still holding this wedge. I am not really quite sure how they've been managing to do this. As they've been riding that line very tight. So again, I think once banks, if we do get good news, that may be what the whole banks situation has been waiting on. We do get good news. If the banks take off, that's one of your lead indicators. So if banks start taking off, your index will rip, and that will cause tech may lag initially, but then tech should catch up, and that will help essentially guide the market back up. So watch the banks first. The banks start ripping, then give it some time, and then typically your industry leaders in growth will start ripping. Your Teslas, your Apples, Googles will definitely be some of the industry leaders. Apple has really been struggling in break. With all the China lockdown stuff, it's really got people concerned. And the fact that it broke that key level last week is interesting because, again, we haven't retested it. We've broken a lot of key levels but haven't retested them. So even if for some reason we do decide to sell tomorrow, just be mindful. We could get a really strong rally by the end of the week. But we coming to that level, we're going to get rejected extremely hard. So there'll be a lot of sellers sitting there just waiting, being patient. So nonetheless, that is pretty much what I got. Again, the biggest catalyst or the biggest market mover is tomorrow with Powell. Again, you got Fed members talking all day. So I'm sure a lot of them will be dropping some information that's going to make the market very volatile tomorrow. So it could be good. I mean, if you're a scalper and we have big movements, it will help. Today was extremely tight, the range. So you didn't really ultimately just sitting out today and waiting for tomorrow and seeing how that plays out, and then try to capture some of the bigger moves tomorrow. But ultimately, that's what we got. So we shall see tomorrow. We'll get better clarification on everything. Again, overnight session, I see us going flat. So let's see how we open up. But otherwise, manage risk, and I will see you guys later.